Hi, I'm Craig, and welcome back to another on-the-road video brought to you by ApplianceVideo.com. Today, we'll be taking a look at the drive motor on this Maytag front-load style dryer. To begin the repair, we must first access the back of the unit. Stop. Before beginning any repair, always be sure to disconnect the power to the appliance. It is also recommended to test the outlet for the proper voltage. Remember to also turn off the water. Now that we have access to the back of the unit, we do have two 5/16 that will have to be removed on the back in order to take the top off. Then slide back, start to wiggle it, pull off your top, and set it aside. Now that we have the top panel removed, we can now gain access and try to remove the console. To remove your console, you have two 1/4" screws that have to be taken off. On this one, looks like you lift up, so there's tabs going across the top. You put your fingers underneath, bend up on the plastic, and start to pull off. You may have to give it a little jiggle, as you do not want it to damage the mounting pieces on the bottom. Just get them out perfectly. The wiring is actually held in by a strain reliever here, so press in on the strain reliever and push it down. Now give us a little bit more slack. The wiring goes all the way back to the console, so what we'll do first is remove the strain reliever just to give us a little bit more room. I'm going to use a tack puller, lift up on the edge, and start to take it out, but be careful as, again, they mount it in very durable plastic, so go slow with it. Actually, I'm going to take a different route. Because the way that this is flexing, I don't want the plastic to break off, so I'm just going to cut the strain reliever off. There we go. I'll push that remaining through, and then when I reattach it, I'll attach it with a zip tie onto the same spot. The wiring just slides right in, so slide off of the board. Just remember which side it's on. It looks like it could fit on two sides here, so it is on the bottom. Remove your console and set it aside. Now with the console removed, we can start to remove the front panel. Now the front panel on this one is actually attached at the bottom, as well as inside, as well as on the top. So to begin, first we're going to slide my bit case underneath it. You can push up, slide under the case. Next, drop down. We have 4 screws underneath, all 1/4". And set your screws aside. Next, go ahead and lift it back up. Remove whatever object you propped it up with. We will open the door. There are 2 Phillips screws that are right next to the duct. Remove these. Close the door. Switch back over to your 1/4". Remove these 3/4" screws across the top. Now your front panel is kind of hooked on, so it shouldn't drop right off, but if you feel more comfortable when you're removing these, make sure you hold it in place. Pull forward on the front panel and lift up. You do have one strain reliever at the front. Use a pair of needle nose pliers, smash them, push it through. This will give us a little bit more room to reach in. You will want to disattach the wiring harness on top. It will feed through the bottom here. Lift up on your front panel and set it aside. With the front panel set aside, the next thing we need to do is remove this bracket. So to start, I'm gonna push through the wiring. Make sure you're careful on the end here. If it snags, the wiring is very small. It'll pull it right out. Next, you have a couple of 1/4" screws on each side that have to be taken off. Lift up on the bracket and wiggle it out. The same as the other side. The bottom has a small piece that goes inside the frame. It kind of holds it in place, so you have to take that out, lift up, pull out, set it aside. Next, let's go ahead and remove the front bulkhead. There are 4 screws on here, as well as this will have to be disattached, so pinch it, spread it, drop it down. Then there's going to be 1 screw under here that has a bracket that's holding on the actual blower housing piece here. So let's remove these 4. And because it has this holding piece at the top, it should not just fall down. Remove these. Now let's get the 1/4" on the bottom. We will drop it and lift up. This is the bracket here, as well as the screw that attaches it. Set these aside. You'll see where it's held on at the top. Grab one side, lift up, start to pull it apart. Do the same on the opposite side here. Lift up on the bulkhead inside. Let this fall off and set it aside. Now with the front bulkhead removed, we have clear access to our drum. To remove your drum, first we must undo the belt. We will drop down. Push the idler back. Let go of the idler gently so that the spring doesn't come off. And then to remove your drum, I like to use the belt. Lift up. That'll give you something to hold on to. Pull the drum out and set it aside. Now that we have the drum removed, we have clear access to our motor assembly. The main reasons why you'd be replacing a motor assembly is if it is overheating in the middle of the cycle. Very common, you'll kind of smell a burning smell and the unit will not start anymore until it cools down for like 15-20 minutes. That's a common symptom of a bad motor. Another thing is it may not start, so when you try to press the start button, it'll just hum, will not kick off, won't do anything. Also, an indication that you have a bad motor. Now, motors also have a tendency to cause it not to heat. In order to test this, we have 2 big red wires on this Molex connector. Let's go ahead and pop that Molex off here so you can see it. Two big red wires. Now, if you follow these and put your meter leads on the 2 terminals that the red wires go to, you'll be testing for continuity. These motors have a centrifugal switch, so what happens is when it goes up to speed, it will push this button down, and when it actuates that back, it sends voltage, the other 120 volts that you need to operate. It will transfer that voltage through the wiring, go over to your heating element. So, test for ohms. Right now, you should not have continuity, but if you press in the switch, you will have continuity. If you are getting a different test than that, it is an indication that you have a bad motor. Now, to remove your motor, First, we're going to remove the blower wheel. I have 1/4 inch screw that is down on the bottom, that is on the housing. Set this aside. Next, we need a 1/2 inch extension to slide inside the blower wheel. Get my ratchet ready. There are 2 points that you can grab the motor with. There's either a flat spot here you can grip on with a wrench, or slide one underneath here. There's a flat spot in the inside. In this in particular case, to loosen, we are going to be turning it clockwise. And it just broke loose. Take out our extensions. Give it a nice little turn. Pop out the blower wheel. Now the motor has 2 clamps on there. One here, one here. In order to remove these clamps, get maybe a flat blade screwdriver or a tack puller, something you can get some leverage with. And then down here, there is one spot you'll push down and you'll pry off. And you can see the motor clamp here. So on the bottom, it goes under a little hook on this side, and this one the same exact way. So when I'm taking it off, I'm putting this in here, pushing down and popping out. Do the same on the bottom one. Starting to get a little dangerous there. It's in there pretty good. There we go. Slide this out, put our cable back, lift up on the motor, slide it out, and set it aside. When installing your new motor, I am going to recommend maybe using gloves this time. So we'll put it on both sides. With the Molex of the motor, we'll go over to the right-hand side. So we will feed it in through the blower wheel entrance. The middle of the green corresponds in the middle of these hooks. Give it a little wiggle, it should drop kind of in place. And like I said, the hooks on the actual motor mounts should be about centered on these plastic pieces. When installing your brackets, we'll put the back side on first, slide it in on the hook. This gives you a little bit of thumb pressing action here. So press down, push it in. Do the same on the other side. Hook in on the left-hand side, drop it down, give it a little push action, drop it in place. Next, we'll get our blower wheel kind of lined up. I'll hold on to the pulley in the back. We're gonna be turning it counterclockwise. Got it in the right spot. Let's slide in our wrench. Drop in the ratchet and tighten it up. Pull it out. Remove the wrench. We'll reinstall the insulation here. So insulation will go out, metal side in. This tab will slide into the slotted area on the outside. Push it in, drop it in place. Reinstall your 1/4 inch screw. Reinstall the Molex on the back. Now we can reinstall our drum. When reinstalling your drum, you will notice that on the drum, one side is larger than the other. So the smaller side is going to go inside on the dryer. The bigger side is going to come out. We'll use a belt to hold it up. Start to bring it in place and give it a turn so it sits on the rollers. Lift up on your belt and get it kind of centered. We will reach inside, grab the idler, lift up on the idler, push the belt around it. While the idler is lifted up, bring the belt around, go around the motor pulley with the rib side down, let go of the idler. Now we can reinstall the front bulkhead. When reinstalling your bulkhead, first we'll bring it in at an angle. The idea is to have this rest on the top portion of the back. Now, to tell the back from the front, obviously the back will have rollers, the front will have the wiring harness here. So, push it in, lift it up, and drop it on our hooks. Once you get it on the hooks, push in and give it a turn. This will start to draw it in. You want it to rest right on the rollers before reattaching the screws. Push that piece of cardboard up if it's in the way. Just give it a couple more turns. Start to screw in the sides. You may have to pull in and hold it on the bottom. Let's go ahead and do the other side. Now first, I'm gonna lift up this side. Let the bottom flex out as this piece should be behind the metal. Then lift it back up. Drop it in place. Should fit a little bit more snug. Once again, push in, reattach your screw, reattach the wiring harness. Next, we will reattach the bottom bracket. This, once again, will go in at an angle. This piece here will slide into a slotted area on the blower. Get it lined up. Reattach your screw. Now we can install the console bracket. When reinstalling your top bracket, as I said before, you have these metal pieces. Basically what will happen is it'll slide in at the top as it's a little bit wider, then it will slide down so that holds it in place. So bring in that portion first on each side. Push down. Reinstall your 4 screws. Be careful with the top ones as you do not want to break that plastic. Start with the bottom one so it'll draw it in. It will line up the holes on the top. Feed through our wiring. And just this strain reliever here will actually go through, lift it up and drop it on the top. Now we can reinstall the front panel. When installing your front panel, first we'll bring it into place. Remember your wiring harness that you disattached. It's a lot easier with the strain reliever off. We will glide it through the bottom slotted bracket here. Start to weave through as we push it back some. Reattach the Molex at the top. Make sure you reattach your strain reliever. Bring it into place, lift up and drop it on these side hooks. This is what kind of anchors it in place so you can screw it back in. Reattach your top 3 1/4" screws. Next, switch over to your Phillips bit. Reattach your 2 screws inside. Now the reason why I do these first is it actually draws the bottom in. The bottom ones are the hardest screws to put in, so do these first, they'll draw it in, make it a lot easier. Close it up. Let's go ahead and lift it up and slide our bit holder underneath. Go back over to our 1/4 inch. Let's start on one of the corners. Now, these screws in the middle are a little trickier as the bottom bows down. So when you're installing it, lift up a little bit. We'll lift up and remove our bit holder. Now we can reinstall the console. When installing a new console, I would still recommend maybe zip tying the wire on here when we have to put it on, as it'll be easier to take off later. Let's go ahead and plug this in. Remember, it went into the bottom slot. I'll weave through a zip tie. I'll just leave it there. Put it in at an angle. Do not force it down, as you do not want to damage the plastic on the bottom. So it may take a second to get it in the correct position. There we go. So what I did whenever I'm pushing it down, I'm trying to push it in. I put a lot of pressure on these corners right here, pushed in and kind of pushed down. It dropped it into place. It's lined up across the top. Let's go ahead and reinstall the 2 holding screws. Do not apply a lot of torque, as we do not want to break these clips. Now we can reinstall the top. When installing your top panel, you have 2 portions. This portion right here has little slotted areas that correspond with the UI console at the top, as well as the screw holes on the back. So put the portion that goes to the top forward, drop it in place. It should sit level. Push it in. Now we can replace the 2 screws. You may have to slide it back and forth in order for it to line up, but once you get 1 screw in, it'll draw the whole top in. And this will complete your repair. Thank you for watching another quality video from ApplianceVideo.com. If you found this video helpful, make sure you click the like and subscribe to our channel.